I don't know necessarily how to put what's going on with a lot of things in the NFL, but if the way it's going right now with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, there's so many things I could get into about how great he is. And if I was with Zach Huey, the man who is in charge of Addict Talks on Spotify, go check him out. I think he had a lot to say before he started putting his stuff away and started getting Green Bay Packers stuff. Anyway, I'm going to steal a line from Trick Williams. The Bengals, let's talk about it. I don't need a hat. Let's just get right into it as always. You like any of the stuff that we're doing, whether it is food reviews on Facebook and Instagram and any of these first reactions that we do, there is a subscribe button somewhere. You'll find it somewhere on that. Hit that if you want to see first reactions like this. Now, I'm just diving right into this because I thought about this during work all this week, and especially what's going on. Do I have to take a specific thing to just try to figure anything out as we're diving into the latter end of the NFL season with a handful of weeks left? And the Cincinnati Bengals are basically, they were good, and then Joe Burrow, toe, foot injury, out for almost half the season. Recently came back, put an absolute beating on the Ravens on Thanksgiving night, and then they go to Buffalo the following week in an absolute barn burner. But Josh Allen was an absolute beast, and then we're just seeing sadness because the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-9 in the wonderful world of the AFC North. They're not going to make the playoffs. Doesn't look like it. They would need an absolute miracle and a bunch of math to make that happen. But Joe Burrow is the main reason why Cincinnati basically exists pretty much. I predicted in the beginning of the year, I thought Cincinnati was going to actually be a puncher's chance. Not even a puncher's chance. I thought they were actually going to make the playoffs and Pittsburgh would be out of it. Now, as of this second that I do this video, Pittsburgh's in first place, and they shouldn't even be there. And Baltimore is in second, and they shouldn't even be there. Baltimore should have 10, 11, 12 wins by now. And how crazy the entire season goes. Joe Burrow comes back. They literally beat down Baltimore, and people were thinking, Joe's back. The offense is healthy. They score points. Watch out. If they go on a heater like they did last year. Remember that last year they won 5 in a row at the end of the season, and they were on the brink, and they just barely missed the 7th final seed in the AFC. And now with the loss to Buffalo, that's pretty much putting them out of it. We're now getting to a point now where whatever happened, it's starting to be a little bit of not necessarily a much ado about nothing thing. The Cincinnati Bengals have been just this weird organization that we don't know if to take seriously. We don't know if to take Cleveland any more seriously, but because their defense is good at home, and now they have Shedeur Sanders, but they don't know if it's going to be him and Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson's coming back. I mean, Cleveland's a mess. Baltimore is a mess. Pittsburgh is definitely a mess, and they need to they need a big reboot. And Cincinnati needs to figure out, they need to look in the mirror and figure out pretty much what are we doing wrong. It's not even that, it's what have you not done. So in a way, just think about what the Bengals were. Old school days, the black and white jerseys, the white pants and whatever, and a boring orange helmet that said Bengals on it. Then as soon as it hit the 80s, when they started putting the Bengal tiger stripes on the helmets and on the sleeves, I'm like, okay. And then the jerseys got better, and the jerseys got more tech and everything like that, and everybody started wanting Bengals jerseys because they were different. And now they have and to be quite honest with you, the Cincinnati Bengals are actually pretty much one of the cooler brands in the NFL. Without a shadow of a doubt. And since recently they just started doing the white out, and they're starting to doing all white jerseys, and they changed the field and all that. But Joe Burrow, since he was drafted in 2020, I mean, a reasonable fact, a reasonable thing of Cincinnati needed that franchise quarterback, no, without a shadow of a doubt, and they did. And all you have to do is put pieces around him, which they did, and then solidify the rest of your defense, which was pretty much the rest of their team, which they have not. Cincinnati, let's just put it this way. Let me jump into this real quick, and I'll go right back to Joe Burrow. Cincinnati needs a lot of stuff. Cincinnati has the Bengals. They also have the Reds in baseball, and they also have FC Cincinnati, the lovable thing of the Queen City. They mix that up with Charlotte, but Cincinnati's big with their soccer. And one time they were in the U.S. Open Cup, and they had a minor league team in the USL, and they put almost 50,000 seats in the University of Cincinnati Stadium just for a freaking U.S. Open game with, I believe it was either Columbus or one of the New York teams. I think it was New York Red Bulls. They sell. Cincinnati's a great sports city. They have no NHL, no NBA. And they don't really need a whole heck of a lot. They've got NFL. But the thing is, Cincinnati's a little bit on that tear where the soccer team is good. The Reds are rebuilding, and they've got pieces. A great ballpark. But here's the Bengals, who just finally fixed up an issue with their stadium, so they extended their lease. There were times a while back that we were talking about, the stadium may be an issue, and they may have to move the team. Now that's got resolved. Now you got to figure out this whole situation with the Cincinnati Bengals and Mike Brown, who's the owner. There's always these tiers: owner, front office, coach, quarterback. You got the quarterback, but you are the cheapest, most irrelevant, cheap, bottom type of ownership, spending-wise, I've ever known, and a lot of sports media people agree with this. Joe Burrow's contract he just recently signed is 5 years for $275 million. It was almost 40 guaranteed, I believe, if I look at correctly. And you are in a strange but a very, very, easily noticeable position where you're paying your quarterback, and you need to surround the rest of your team, not necessarily by chunk change, but Cincinnati is cheap, but then they don't know necessarily how to basically do a lot of business. When they signed Burrow, it was like they need to get everybody else. They signed Jamar Chase. They signed T. Higgins. They gave Trey Henderson an extension and a raise. But they never fixed their defense, and they never fixed their offensive line. Joe Burrow has been sacked more times in 6 years than Andrew Luck was in less games. And it's a creepy, creepy type of thing. And I'm just thinking to myself, Cincinnati deserves better, but Joe Burrow is getting the little snot beat out of him every single week. For one of the best quarterbacks in college, I always throw these things at you, and it's not necessarily a particular thing, because my friend Zach Huey would probably tell you the same thing. He would probably straight up say, we don't deserve him. We've let him down. And you give credit because Joe Burrow has brought the team and took them to a Super Bowl. They even beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And think about it. Joe Burrow was one play away from continuing the game. The game was actually a really good game, 23-17. They lost to the Rams in SoFi, but Aaron Donald got to him on fourth down, and that shows you how great Aaron Donald is. But Joe Burrow got this team to a Super Bowl, and Cincinnati has gone to 3. And all 3 of those times, they had franchise quarterbacks. Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, and here's Joe Burrow. But what is next for... If you are Joe Burrow right now, you have an absolutely papier-mâché offensive line that cannot protect him. He's been injured, already had an ACL tear, and he just had an injured foot. If I'm Joe Burrow, I know and understand completely that you want to help your team, and you are one of the best quarterbacks in the business today. But if this team cannot help you, and this team will not do what you want them to do to help you succeed, especially on the offensive line, and your defense is near the bottom of the pack in the entire league, offensively as far as rush and pass defense, I'm like, get me out of here. Cincinnati ownership is probably either that boring, stubborn, so half-faced, two-faced, and can't really figure out what to do. I'd almost give Joe Burrow the Matt Stafford treatment. Matt Stafford left Detroit because he's like, we're not getting anywhere. Help me. And they traded him to LA. He wins a Super Bowl. But Detroit got well in return and got Jared Goff back. So I don't know what to tell Cincinnati Bengal fans. I want them to succeed as much as the Steelers and anybody else, even the Falcons or whatever. But if your team cannot help Joe Burrow and protect him, I wouldn't want Joe Burrow to just be like, you're not doing anything for me. Get me out of here. I'm getting destroyed. I don't know who would take his contract. Think of the teams that need him. I'm going to wind this bar down real quick. Who would take Joe Burrow's contract? Maybe in Arizona, maybe the Rams, not the Rams, maybe the Raiders, a team that needs a quarterback. He wouldn't go to the Jets. He wouldn't go to that ownership. Go somewhere where it's going to help you in the long run. Otherwise, Cincinnati is going to be dealing with this entire thing for God knows how long. I feel for Joe Burrow. I actually like him, even though he was an Ohio State Buckeye, but he won a natty. He won a natty in LSU, one of the best teams to ever be in college football. But it's going to come down to Cincinnati. It's about time you literally start figuring what you need to do to get your team better, and you're not the Chiefs. You're not the Rams. You fix your stuff in a week. Whatever. You want to keep Joe Burrow? Get your head out of your new what? And I'm being dead serious. The city of Cincinnati, do better.